So thanks everybody for coming. For those of you that don't know me, I am Chris Higgins. I'm with CCS Technology Group, which is your IT service provider. My role, I'm a solutions architect. I spend most of my day helping businesses figure out where they're at and how to get to where they want to be. But I hold 2 certifications in AI, one in AI security, as well as one in the use of AI and Copilot specifically. So your team has decided to move forward and try and leverage Copilot. I have been an active user of Copilot for a little over 2 years now, and there's tons of fun stuff in there. So I firmly believe that Copilot saves me at least 2 hours every day. But we can go ahead and get started. Just a couple little housekeeping things. We are going to be recording this. If you can make sure you're muted, just so we have good audio on the recording. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Or we could do an open mic at the end if people have questions or want to go back and try something or whatever. Feel free to do that. I am interested to know the role that everybody has within the organization. So if you're in sales and marketing, if you're on the ops team, if you're mostly in production, whatever. So if you want to just drop your role in the chat, and then that'll also let me know that everybody knows where the chat is. And then we will go from there. All right. I'll get my screen moving. All right. So we got marketing, accounting, operations, ops, sales, marketing, engineering. Sweet. We got a little bit of everything, which is cool. I'm sure you all have heard a little bit about AI. We're about three years into the big explosion, and the impact is real. So we have seen the fastest adoption of AI compared to any other technology. Considering the time frame on the image, you could see the speed at which it took to get to 1 million or 100 million users. So really fast adoption. It only took 3 months for ChatGPT to get there. But so a little bit of background. So you guys are going to be moving forward with Copilot. So Copilot is the ChatGPT engine. So most of you have probably heard that name. OpenAI is the company that owns it. Microsoft owns 45% of ChatGPT. So that being said, that there are some significant differences between ChatGPT and OpenAI, or in Copilot. In ChatGPT, if you put anything and you use the web version of ChatGPT, you're training the model. So any information you put in there, your prompt, the information that it generates, all of that is owned by ChatGPT, not your organization. Whereas by using Copilot, it's using the same engine and it's using the web information that's on ChatGPT, but your organization maintains ownership of both the prompt and the results that were generated. So all that information never leaves your 365 tenant and will never train the model. So there is no risk of putting something in Copilot and then having a competitor be able to ask it a question and get your information. So it's really critical that we make sure we're using Copilot and not the free version of ChatGPT. But as you'll see, there's significant reasons why it's easier to use Copilot than the ChatGPT. So most organizations, including yours, think that AI is going to be a competitive edge. So there's a lot of people out there that are talking about how AI is going to steal jobs. And the statistics for small and mid-sized businesses aren't there. So it may happen on large international organizations, but on the small mid-sized business space, the average user has 2 hours of work that they were supposed to do today that gets pushed to tomorrow. So if we're saving a user 2 hours a day, we're just helping them get done today, the things that they should have gotten done today. So we're going to increase productivity. You're going to have a personal assistant that's going to help you make your job easier, reduce stress, and produce better content. Preparing for the era of AI. So there is a little bit of planning. We've already helped your organization go through and make sure all the security is set up. Your shares are in place, so it has access to things that it should. But even within your department or your role, really, you have to have a plan. So what are your goals in leveraging AI? It could just be personal productivity, right? responding to more emails, better customer service, stuff like that. Or you might have specific business processes that you want to automate or streamline. So what are those organizations' pain points? What are your current company's capabilities? So this might be human assets, things that you have people that are really good at things. I like to tell people that leverage AI for things that you're not good at or you don't have the bandwidth for or repetitive, and give those human assets more time to leverage their brain power and get better content. And then does your organization have the necessary infrastructure and resources to support AI initiatives? So we've done a lot of this legwork already, but as we move into a future phase, might look at, will Copilot integrate with another tool that you have or another data set so that the more data it can learn, the better. So really important, Copilot is just a tool. Copilot's going to help you increase your productivity. It does not replace critical thinking. Microsoft intentionally called it Copilot because you still need a pilot of the plane. It takes two. So Copilot or all AI can still give you wrong answers. It's a great starting point. I like to think of it as a intern or a new personal assistant, right? You're going to want to review their work, maybe train it to do better in the future, but you are still the human that's responsible for the content that you put out there. So let's not just copy and paste. Let's make sure we're using good content or good judgment. So use by role, the more of these presentations I do, the clearer it comes that different departments are going to use AI differently. They have different daily tasks. Sales and marketing is going to use it a lot for generating content, shaping email messaging, creating social media posts, creating content, maybe doing competitive analysis, stuff like that. Finance is more likely to use it to analyze sales data, financial reporting, graphing. There's a lot of stuff in Excel you'll see that Excel has always been able to do, but maybe you didn't know how to do a graph or pivot tables and stuff, and now you can just ask it questions and it'll help you find those answers. Whereas operations might streamline standard operating procedures, SOPs, or evaluate production schedules, stuff like that, right? Obviously, HR and legal, right, they have different roles. Everybody's going to use it a little different. So one thing I encourage everybody to do is if you find something that is really helpful for you, to make sure you share it within your department as well as with leadership, because there might be other people that could use that strategy as well. So here's a little intro video about Copilot.
Whoa. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto, yeah. Brand new bands for the auto, oh. Foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Vault full of songs, all of them bombs. Something like a minefield guy, boom. Get it, tickets running out quick. Bet it, never get it outbid. Said it, never had to shout it. They said I couldn't ever do it, okay, how's this? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To do this written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Okay. Look, flows the same now. Paved the way, the snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
All right, one nice thing about Copilot is it's completely embedded into the 365 applications. So if you have ever used Copilot or ChatGPT in the past, right, you would go to ChatGPT, you would put in whatever you wanted, and then you had to copy and paste it either into Word or Outlook or Excel or whatever that was, right? So we're going to run through each of the applications. We're going to show a bunch of examples of things that you could do in each application, as well as a couple different ways that you can access Copilot. Really, the goal of this is really to give you an idea of some of the things that you can get started on. And because really, the more you use it, you'll come up with new ideas of how it could work for you. So this is what they call the Microsoft graph. The graph is all the parts and pieces that Copilot has access to that it can use to train it, and also content it can generate from, as well as just things it has access to. So in there, we have your documents. So anything that's in your OneDrive, you have access to on SharePoint. It has access to your calendar and your contacts, your email messages, your Teams messages, meetings, people, devices, coworkers, all of that stuff. Usually takes about 30 days to do the initial learning, but you'll see from day one, when you ask it questions, it might sound very robotic, but the more it learns, especially from your email content, it will start writing in your voice. So it'll learn whether you write very formally or very casually, or like having it has access to Teams, right? And your SharePoint, you could ask it things about what's going on with this customer or that. And if there's content in there, it can answer questions based on that content. So prompt engineering, this is always a fun part. Everybody goes, how do I ask it something? So I got this as an outline of every prompt. So what is the purpose or use of that prompt? If you tell Copilot that you're looking to write social media posts, right? It knows what you can do in Facebook. It knows what you can do in LinkedIn. It knows what you can do in X, and so on. If you tell it you're writing an email, it'll format it like that. If you're telling it it's for a customer or to your engineer or whatever, right? It will adjust how it generates that content based on the audience. So audience is the next piece. Is this for a customer? Is it for marketing? Is it for our ops manager? Those different audiences, you might give different information or present it in a different way. A customer may not be super technical, right? They want to know about features and benefits and stuff like that. Whereas an engineer or a vendor might want very specific information. And if it has access to that, it can generate it. Format. So if you tell it you want bullet points or you want a table or you want paragraphs, it can format it like that for you. Length is a big one. Do you want 3 sentences or do you want 4 pages? So it's a big one I use all the time. So give me 3 paragraphs on this. Give me 5 bullet points on that. Will help it learn what you want. Otherwise, it's going to throw something out. And then you'd have to ask, well, can you turn that into bullet points? Or you would put it into Word and then you're going to reformat stuff. So tone, you can tell it you want to be formal, you want to be casual, you want to be funny, any of those types of tone, right? So this is something I use a lot. I have a tendency to come off in written stuff a little dry. So I tell it to make it interesting or fun or stuff like that. So it's not so just dry or curt. Provide examples. So if you're looking to build a case study, to tell it include this and include that, and make sure you have these 3 value propositions. It will fill in more, but if you tell it that you want to make sure that these subjects or these areas are highlighted, it'll do that. And then this is hilarious. During my Microsoft training, Microsoft said to make sure to be nice to it. And I tested, if you ask it short, you get not as good of answers as if you say please and thank you. So if you say, can you help me do this? You'll get better answers. And I don't know why, but it's true. So how to access Copilot. So there's a couple things. So this is the Copilot app. So it should be either in your quick launch bar, or you can search for Copilot and add it to your search bar. But I want to point out that make sure you're using the one that says M365 Pilot. Oh, Skynet is why. So the M365 one will have access to your internal SharePoint and 365 account. Their computers are now getting pushed out with free Copilot, which doesn't have the M365 in the logo, and that will only use the web as part of the graph. So also you can use Bing or Edge, the browser, right? So what used to be Bing Chat is now Copilot. A couple little things. So first of all, you'll want to make sure that your 365 user shows up in the corner. That's going to show that you're logged in. It's going to give you access to your 365 tenant so that you could get that content. And then if you'll see at the top middle, it has whether you want the work or the web. So if you didn't want it to use internal documents to produce content, if you flip it to just the web, it won't use SharePoint data or 365 data in its responses, right? I find this very useful if you're trying to do competitive analysis type stuff where you want to get out of your head, because if you're using a bunch of data that you created, it won't give you necessarily, it's going to regurgitate some of that information. So if you're trying to find the best chairs, I would turn the web only on. So there's some little nuances like that. Copilot in Teams. So this video will show a few things in Teams, but I'm going to talk about most of it anyway. So we'll play the short video and we won't worry about the audio. I don't know if you can. So some of the cool things you could do in Teams. So Teams really is the center of the universe when it comes to 365 data now. So you can ask it questions in Teams about things that were created in any other application. So not just the Teams meetings, but in those Teams meetings, it showed that you could ask it a question. It'll give you the transcription part that was the answer to that question, but you could also click that reference and it'll take you directly to that spot in the video. So if it was an hour or hour and a half long video, you don't have to watch the whole thing to find it, right? So it'll take you to about 30 seconds before that thing. It'll play that video. You could fast forward or rewind from there, or you can watch the whole thing. So that's super powerful. So the other thing they showed there is follow. So when you've gotten a meeting in the past, whether it was in Outlook or in Teams, your choices were to accept, maybe, or decline, right? So now there's going to be a new option, which is follow. So follow is, I know I can't make the meeting, but I want to get the updates and the transcripts and be included maybe in any action items, stuff like that. So one thing I have learned, if you're in a Teams meeting, to make the action items list more accurate, if you say, I'll take that as an action item, it will definitely put it in the summary. If you're having a conversation and somebody says, yeah, I'll get that done, maybe not in the action items. So one thing I use it all the time, I'm sure you guys have very busy calendars too. You can ask it, when is the next time that these two people are free at the same time for an hour-long meeting, or however much time you need. And it'll help you find that information. You can do that prompt either from Outlook or from Teams. It works great. So the draft responses, you could do that in either Outlook or Teams. Organize calendars. So ask it, what do I have coming up? What meetings do I need to prepare for this week? Create the follow-up reminder. So if you're going to use tasks and stuff, you can have it directly create those. And then I'll create task lists, which I just talked about. So tons of great information there. And from Teams, you can still be like, whether you're in a team or you're just in your app, like I'm sure there'll be times where you're like, I'm looking for this document. You might not know if it came from email, if it's in SharePoint, or if it was in a Teams message, and it'll go find it. We'll show Outlook next. So some of the key things, Outlook. So summarize key points from the last 10 emails. The schedule meeting with Joe next week and suggest some available times. Draft a response to an email. That's pretty obvious. Organize your calendar. List all my meetings on Monday in chronological order with bullet points, meeting titles, and attendees. So maybe you're just trying to put a summary together for yourself of what you have to do on Monday. Follow-up reminders. So in Outlook, you always had the ability to put a little flag and say, give me a seven-day reminder or a 3-day reminder or something like that. Nobody ever did it because they forgot about it, but now you could just ask Copilot and it'll do it for you and then set up the reminder for you. Create a task list from the action items in the email. Another one I use a lot is help me find emails that require a response from me that I didn't respond to. So I'm sure all of us, our mailboxes are packed, and you got stuff from vendors, you got stuff from clients, you have internal things. And if you use your open or read items as your to-do list, and you might have read it on your mobile and now it's not highlighted, you can ask it to find the ones that you haven't responded to that you should have. So that one's super powerful. I use it probably twice a week just to make sure I haven't missed anything. So here is Word. So Word is obviously one of the most obvious applications if you're generating content, but so I use this all the time for tables and research and stuff because you could just leave a Word document open. I tend to just leave one open with Copilot to be kind of like my notepad, but just some scenarios. So sales might be scheduling a meeting with a customer and they're going to take them out to lunch, right? So you can ask Copilot to find me good restaurants in the area, generate a table, including the restaurant name, the address, the phone number, and their Google reviews or the type of food they have. And then, like they said, maybe you want another piece of information, you just tell it to add a column with that information, it'll fill it in. Summarizing this document. So this is a huge one. So I read a lot of long compliance things, and it's really common, especially in compliance, that you'll get 40 pages that really only have 3 paragraphs that are important. Summarize this document, tell me what's important, stuff like that. What is the purpose? Is this sales and marketing material? Is this information about a design, something that somebody wants? It'll read it to find out what the intent of the author is. Brainstorming ideas, right? So one thing I do a lot is, so like maybe you wrote a document and you want a catchy title, right? So it can obviously see the content that's in that document, but then ask it to help you make a title. And one thing I do a lot is tell it you want 3 of them or 5 of them. Give me 5 different titles, 5 catchy titles about this document. And then you as the human, as the pilot, right, you can pick the one that you think is most appropriate. Explain this document in 1 paragraph, right? Another way to do summary. List the pros and cons on something. So whether you're doing research on something or you're trying to add to a current document, right? So you have this new product, help me create a pros and cons list or frequently asked questions list. How can I improve the introduction of this text? So anywhere you can highlight a section of a paragraph and just there'll be a little button that pops up. And if you want it to rewrite or suggest changes. So usually it'll give you at least 3 and you can just scroll through them. And if you like one, you just pick it or you can edit it. Generate a more professional conclusion, or even just you did your body and help me summarize, make a conclusion. Turn this paragraph into bullet points. That's a really good one. Write a summary based on all emails from Sam in the past 2 weeks. So now we're in Word, but maybe you've got like multiple conversations going on with customer in different email chains, right? In Word, you could grab all of those things, dump it into 1 Word document, then you can massage it. And then if you wanted to move it back to Outlook, you could. Compare 1 policy with 2. So one thing, it's hard to show on the screen, but when you're in the Copilot prompt, if you use the /, you can direct it to specific files, people, or objects in your team. So I can say / and then I could go search for a document, whether it's a PDF or Word document, Excel spreadsheet, right? If it's in my OneDrive or SharePoint, I could use an @ and tag a member in my organization. There's a whole bunch of other little shortcuts like that are really helpful. So imagine you have Word open and you have 2 PDFs. So this is a really common example for lawyers or any revisions of contracts, right? So you've gone back and forth. You had a last revision. They wanted to make edits. they said, oh, I made the edits we talked about. Now you want to compare the two. If you put both of those documents in your OneDrive and you point to them, you can ask it to highlight and tell you what changed between the two documents. So a great example, I had a 300-page document that was a proposed rule and a final rule. If I would have had to figure that out the old-fashioned way, I would have printed them both and gone paragraph by paragraph, right, looking for changes. I guarantee you about 50 pages in, I would have gotten bored and not been very accurate. So Copilot did that same task. It took it about 20 minutes, but it gave me 9 major changes and then 6 minor text edits with descriptions. So like this item was moved from this section to that section. There was this item was clarified and here's the new definition. And then these 3 things were eliminated. These 6 things were added, blah, 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 and gave me a summary. So I guarantee everybody asks, like, is AI accurate? So in this case, I would say it was probably more accurate than I would have been, just because you would have given up, right? So some great ideas of how to use Copilot in Word. Excel is fun. So any of those finance people or operations people, this one's definitely for you. So this is one I really love. I used to teach advanced Excel courses to users, and most of the time users, they didn't try to use the advanced features because they were either too complicated or they didn't know what they were called. They didn't know how to do them, right? So YouTube made that a little better if you knew what it was called, be like, show me how to make a pivot table. But now you can just ask Copilot, like, how do you help me analyze this data? So one thing that's really interesting, I've worked on a couple projects with customers and they've exported some massive amounts of data into Excel. And so one of them was help us analyze what our most cost effective products are, or most profitable products, or whatever the question was. And the interesting thing is some of the answers it came up with, the leadership of those organizations hadn't thought of. You get stuck in your own head and you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. Anytime sales goes down, it's this, or these are our highest volume items, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the most profitable items. So in this one scenario, it identified a couple low profit items. And so what the problem they were trying to figure out is how do they increase sales and they were limited on productivity space. They were already running multiple shifts. They didn't have any room for expansion. They couldn't add another line, right? So it identified 3 products that were low profit items. But one really cool analysis that came out of it is they asked it, what would happen to sales if we eliminated these items? And it pointed out that 2 of those items were almost exclusively purchased by their number 1 client. So if they would eliminate those, that client might have to go find another supplier for those items, right? And now they would have to compete on their profitable items, right? So now they're making a business decision about retaining a customer, not about eliminating a product line. Now, the conversation might change and say, maybe we need to talk to that customer and just be like, we can't make it for this much. We'll keep all these other products priced the same, but this one product, the price has to change. So a lot of us that have been doing this a really long time, we're set in our ways, and it'll help you look at it in a different way. But one thing that is really cool is it'll put all this new data in a new tab. It won't mess with your current data. Now you can, on a single tab sheet, you can tell it to highlight the top 10 items, make them red, and it'll do that because it's not changing the core data. But if you're telling it to analyze and give you answers to questions, it'll put it in another tab so it doesn't mess up your data. So some great prompts in Excel to set up conditional formatting. So this is something that it's a little easier in Excel than it used to be, but you still have to know it's there. But I want to highlight the top 10 items in this column green and the lowest 10 items in this column red, and it'll just do it for you. Compare columns. So, if column A is higher than column B, change its color or highlight it or make it bold or whatever you need to do. Extract text. This one I see sales and marketing use a lot. So you have a list of customers or prospects or whatever, maybe attendees at a trade show, and whatever that data came out of, the first and last name might be in the same cell and you need it in two separate cells, right? So you can tell it to separate the first and last name and put them in new columns. So now you can just import and export the data that you really need. The spot trends, calculate based on another table. So if you have another document, you can use as reference. Splitting text, looking up data. So I don't know if anybody's ever used lookup fields, but you can have data on another tab and then use it in a drop down. So that's an advanced feature, but it can help you do that. And then compare columns in different tables. So maybe you have a column that is revenue or number of items, and one tab or one worksheet is 2025 and one's 2026, or this workbook is 2024 and this one's 2025. You can ask it questions across workbooks or across worksheets. PowerPoint. So this is crazy how good this is. So you can give it a Word document. You could give it a flyer that you created and just be like, make me a 12 slide PowerPoint on this topic. You can even give it the URL of your website and tell it to make sure it's branded. It does a pretty good job of putting logos on pages, using colors and fonts and stuff that are off your website, stuff like that. Creating engaging titles. So similar to in Word, right? Maybe you made the slide, but you're like, help me make a title for this page, or give me 3 engaging titles for this page. Generate speaker notes, right? Everybody will tell you that you should not put every word you're going to say on a slide, right? So help me generate the talking points that I want to make sure I'm going to say when this slide's up. Summarize key points. Maybe that's a slide at the end. Suggest relevant images or videos. So PowerPoint does a pretty good job of creating art for you. You can pull in your own art just like you would in a normal PowerPoint, but if you just ask it to make the entire slideshow, it's going to put pictures on every page that are relevant to the conversation. So you might use that formatting and then just swap out a picture, or you could tell it to give you a picture that looks like an office space, right? And it will go and edit those things for you. Creating interactive elements. The PowerPoint is probably the best design tool that Office has. So anybody that uses Illustrator or InDesign or some of those things, you can do layers and stuff in PowerPoint. And to be honest, Copilot will leverage more of those features than I would, because we just don't know they're all there. So layered images, backgrounds, titles, text or frames, you can tell it to change this paragraph into bullet points, all of those types of things. Drafting introductions, right? So that's just more content generation. Any PowerPoint, is there anything else? That's pretty much it. So using your new personal assistant. So across all of these platforms, these are really conceptual things that if you're doing, try using Copilot. So brainstorming new ideas. I ask it all the time, what are the top 10 concerns in this industry on this topic? Or what are the compelling features and benefits of a product like this? What do I need to know if I am thinking about doing a project like this? It does a great job. If you were to use a search engine for that, right, you're going to go and Google will give you an article or two, and you might read one or two or scan through them. This is going to search thousands of documents in seconds and give you a summary across the industry of generally accepted concepts. So it's going to do it way faster than you could. Overcoming writer's block. I use it for this all the time. Getting started, the first 5 sentences are always hard. So to tell it that I need to put together a 3-page summary on this topic for this customer, to and make sure I get across these 3 points. Just let it go. And then you might say, oh, that's good, but it's not what I was thinking of. But now you go, oh, but this is what I want, right? Now you can ask it again, a different prompt, and get closer to where you want to be. So creating initial drafts, very similar. Summarize documents or conversations. One of my favorite things to do is we've all had those email chains that there's 20 people on, there's vendors, there's internal staff, there might be a customer on it, and people are chiming into different parts of the email. And to sit down and understand the conversation before you respond to it could take 20 or 30 minutes, right? You can ask Outlook to just summarize this email chain or all the conversations with this customer right now and give me a gist of what's going on and who's involved. Review documents for tone or message. So I do this a lot. Can you help me make sure that this document is in a fun or friendly tone, or it's in an educational tone? It's not just happy, sad, mean, or angry, right? It does a pretty good job. Updating old materials. So maybe you have old documents on things that you want to spruce up. Maybe language and terminology's changed, or just what people want to know is different. Give it an old document as a reference and say, hey, can you update this? And then ask it to teach you a new skill. So you can ask Copilot how to use Copilot. It sounds funny, but in Excel, you could ask it for instructions on how to generate a pivot table. You can, in PowerPoint, ask it how to import video content. Any of those types of things, it will either give you text step-by-step instructions. It may link to an article that gives you those instructions, maybe with a video or whatever, but it could also just teach you how to do that. Looking for alternative approaches. This is getting out of your own head. So the company, we're having this current problem. We were thinking about doing this. It didn't work. Our next thing was to this. What else do I need to know about this topic? Or what other approaches have other companies done? It's going to scour tons of information, articles, case studies in other industries that businesses have said that they did to solve that problem that you would never find in a search engine. Extracting key information. This is a 40-page document. I got 5 minutes for it, right? So just summarize this. Tell me what I need to know about this document. Analyzing data. A lot of that's going to be in Excel. But the number one thing is to make sure you know that this is your personal assistant. If you think about it like an intern, right? You're going to give it a project or something to do. You need to review the results, and then you need to review them and or change them or teach it to do it better before you copy and paste and send it to the customer. At that point, I will, if anybody has any questions, you can either put them in chat or you could unmute yourself and we could talk about it.
I have a question, Chris. On the work versus web, if you're on the web tab in the app and you upload, I have our P&L, does that go to the web then, or is that still protected?
It's still protected. So that's asking it, you're telling it what you want it to use for part of the graph. So do you want, when you ask it a question, whether it would use your work as reference material?
Got it.
Or do you want just the web?
Thank you.
All good. So on those last videos, were you able to hear? I tried changing a few other settings. Were you able to hear?
No, nothing came across on our end.
All right. So when you get me the recording, I'll give it to my marketing people with the actual video, and we can splice them in. So for people to rewatch or people that weren't here, it might take a week to get them to turn that around, but we can fix that.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. For the United Group team, Joey's kind of our point internally. If you have any questions or need a walkthrough of where to find Copilot, how to use it, please start with him and he can assist you or get you in touch with somebody that can help you with your Copilot related inquiry. But otherwise, Chris, appreciate your time. Didn't have any additional questions from my end.
Great.
Yeah, and I think the only other tip that I would add to everybody is this is one of those tools, the more you use it, the more it's going to become more familiar. So I know Chris did a great job of giving us tips and tricks, but that you get in there, you play with it, and it gets better as we go.
Thank Bill.
And I think Bill had some background. But yeah, I totally agree with that because you will learn as you ask it things like, oh, that's not what I wanted. And then be like, I wonder if I ask it this. And I very much encourage you to share amongst yourselves too. Hey, I asked it this and it did a really good job. Because there'll be, everybody's business is unique and how their applications are unique. You'll get different responses, right? And I'll also say, in the first 30 days, you're going to see a drastic change in how it answers things. Might be a little faster for you guys because a couple of your users have already had Copilot for a while. It's indexed some of your company data already, but on your personal, especially like the tone and the sentence structure and stuff, it'll get better it'll take about 4 weeks. So it's going to watch how you respond to things and stuff like that. So definitely remind yourself to try doing something with it every day. And then, especially if you find things you do that are very repetitive or the parts of your job that you don't enjoy, you're not good at, right? Use it as your personal assistant and help it make your job easier.
And I think that one other thing, just as a quick highlight, it's actually on your screen right now, Chris. If you look on the right-hand side where it says recent chats, that's something that I've found to be very helpful is if you think about your chats as topics and start a new topic. And if you want to keep it, especially in my role, I do a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of operations. If I want it focused in any of those areas, I go back to that chat that was about the financials, or I go back to the chat that was about our dealers so that it has a little bit more frame of reference and guidance. And then that helps steer your results a little bit better.
Yeah, and it'll also give you a clean slate when you're changing topics, right?
Mhm.
If you just leave a Word document open and you're like, oh, I asked it this and I was asking it for very graphical or sales focused stuff, and then I ask it about something totally separate, it'll kind of lag and it'll still be thinking you want stuff about this, that the last topic, right? So it'll create a break and be like, okay, we're having a new conversation. I'm starting over. So it doesn't hallucinate based on that other topic that may not be relevant.
And then just from a United Group standpoint, this was just really the kickoff. So we will get that group share set up along with additional training. So don't feel like you need to remember everything Chris said. We'll share this recording and just play with it. It's the best way to learn.
Yep. And I've done another class. Once people get at least using it for a couple months, where we on advanced prompting. So we took scenarios and took a basic prompt and an advanced prompt and reviewed the results, right? Because a 1 or 2 sentence prompt will get you a very different answer than if your prompt is its own paragraph, right? I need a sales presentation on this topic and how the last time this happened when the economy was doing that, you can get some really good information the better you get at prompting. So I do use this screen as a reference, right? So purpose, audience, format, length, tone, examples. So think about that when you're writing your prompt and in practice. Yep. All right. Look at that, right at an hour. So thank you all for your time. And then Heather and Ryan, if you get me that video, the recording, I'll send it off and we'll get those videos cut in and then you can save that as a training material piece for the future.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll do. Thanks, Chris.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Chris.